have to let it all go, Neo. Fear, doubt, and disbelief. Free your mind. Whoa. Right. No problem. Free my mind. Free my mind. No problem. Right.
All right, so what's the point of this video? Is it free your mind? Is it believe in yourself? In my mind, the point of this video is actually that sometimes we jump and we fall really hard, ass over tin can. But what we're going to talk about today is why we need to jump anyway and why we need to fall. And in the words of the Cowardly Lion from The Wizard of Oz, that's called courage. Now, just before I start, a little story. My precocious 4-year-old said to me, Mommy, who's Ted and what are you going to talk to him about? And I said, well, honey, you know, I'm going to talk about courage. And he sucked in his breath and said, oh, it's a little tricky, Mom. You better call in God or Santa. And you know what he was doing, though? He was projecting, wasn't he? Who are the big guns? Who are the most courageous people I know? And we do that, don't we? When we start to think about the heroes who have really shaped our lives. We might think about the 9/11 firefighters, Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi. You know, we might think about Neil Armstrong. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. I mean, how would you like that on your resume, right? Achievements, one giant leap for mankind. We might think about our men and women in uniform who have sacrificed themselves to protect us, right? We might think about Thomas Edison, who was told, you know what, you're too stupid to learn anything. One of my favorite stories is that of Ruby Bridges. I don't know if you know about Ruby, but she was a 6-year-old black girl sent to a formerly all-white elementary school in New Orleans. She was just trying to go to school. Ruby was threatened to be poisoned. Teachers walked out. They wouldn't teach her. One woman showed up with a little black baby doll in a coffin. You know what Ruby said? You know what her takeaway was so many years later? We don't come into this life disliking one another. Life takes courage. And so when we think about courage and we think about heroism and we think about acts of bravery, I think what we have to remember is that courage isn't just being brave in the extraordinary moments. And actually, if we look at the original definition of courage, and I know it's evolved, but it comes from the Latin term, it's derived from the Latin term cur, which means be who you are with your whole heart. Be who you are with your whole heart in the ordinary moments. Be who you are with your whole heart always. The one thing I want to also say before we really get into this is that courage doesn't imply the absence of fear, right? Because without fear, we can't be courageous. You know, without fear, life is more of an adventure. And as I look around the room here, and if I were a gambling girl, which I totally am, by the way, I would definitely bet this room is in store for a lot of great adventures. You know, when I was a little bit older, not much older than you were, I was about 24 years old, and I had rung up my credit card to about $350. Considering that was my monthly take-home pay at the time, I knew I was in trouble. So when my company offered me the chance to go to Ukraine, I thought, excellent, I will skip the country, problem solved. But what happened was I was transferred to Kiev, Ukraine, and then another area in southern Ukraine called Simferopol, which was a mafia-infested area. It was scary. I was 24. I was managing a team of Ukrainians. I didn't speak the language. I remember going to a bar one night and finding out 2 hours after I had left that bar, 14 people had been shot by the mafia. So was it scary? Absolutely. Were there challenges? Absolutely. But did we get through them? Absolutely. And then that assignment led to another assignment in Kampala, Uganda, in East Africa, where I was literally one of a handful, and I do mean less than 5, white women working in the city, and then to London, England. I'm skipping over these experiences very quickly, but I don't want you to think they were nothing less than profound. Absolutely adventurous. Did they require resourcefulness, creativity, tenacity, leadership? Yes, 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 yes. But courage, you know, I don't know. I was kind of going with the flow. You know, I had all these people behind me saying, you can do it, you can achieve it. You know, you're going to be a success, go, go, go. And when you have all these people in your corner, living the dream is kind of easy, right? And believe me, I was happy to go with the flow. The problem is, the dream isn't always yours. So my real point of courage came when I came back to the US, and I had taken a job with a big company. And although I did professionally well, let's just say, ethically and morally, it wasn't a fit. From the get-go, I didn't ethically believe in what some of the things this company was doing. And I'm not being dramatic when I tell you that I was bullied. So without going into all of the dirty details, over weeks and over months, I was continually bullied, and it landed me physically sick. I landed in the hospital. And despite all that, you know what I did? As dumb or naive or whatever I was at the time, I kept trying harder. Oh, I want them to like me. Let me just try harder and do it this way. And the courage kept coming up, right? Patty, this is not right. No, 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 I want them to like me. And the courage kept coming up. Patty, you know, it's time to go, do something different. No, 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 I'm just gonna try it a different way. And the courage kept coming up. No, 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 okay, fine. You know what, courage, you win. I quit. So, did I feel amazing when I did what I should have done a year earlier? No, actually, to tell you the truth, I felt a bit like a turd. So, anyway, the point is, I felt like I had let everybody down. All of these people who had believed in me. I felt like I had let myself down. I felt like all of these things that had defined me were being taken away from me, or worse, maybe I was throwing them away. And I was scared. And I had gotten so far away because I was trying to squash my courage down. I had gotten so far away from who I was with my whole heart, I was weak. I couldn't be who I wanted to be. So after a long time, today I've got my own company. And believe me, that's not all hearts and flowers all the time either. But we have great clients, we do great work, and I am proud of my team every single day. So, here's the good news. You don't need a burning building, and you don't even need a bad job to find it. What you need, you've always had inside you, and I'm going to prove it to you right now. So let's take a look at this guy. All right, so we all start out something a little bit like this, right? We're happy, we're ready, we're hardwired for challenge. And before you totally discount this guy's challenges, you think about it. He's got to learn to walk, he's got to learn to talk, he's got to learn to control his bodily functions. I mean, how many of you had to think about that today, right? So we're set for challenges, and we're ready. And so what do? We try to stand up. We take a little baby step forward, and sometimes this happens, right? And so we're down, we're falling, you know? But here's the interesting part. As soon as the fall happens, almost immediately, he gets back up. He doesn't think about success or failure. He doesn't even know if he can walk. He sees the fall, and in the world, in the context of an 11-month-old, that fall hurt. And when your fall comes, in your context, it's going to hurt. But the point is, we started this way. We know we can get through it. It's in us, right? So, the question is this. What happened? What happened to me? If it's in us, if we're born with the willingness to move forward, what happened to me? What happened to our society? What happened to all of these people that are depressed, or they've lost their purpose, or they've lost their passion? You know, in the words of this conference, how have they lost their way? And here's my theory. My theory is that we unlearn courage. Think about it, right? We create these confines in the structure of our ordinary days that cause us to unlearn courage. So think about it. You spend the first year of your life being told, paint it, color it, build it, believe in it, you can do it, you fell, get back up. Draw me a house. Ooh, you drew a dragon with rainbows and hearts and flowers and fire? Awesome! Aren't you the best? The next 17 years of your life, you're told no. For the next 17 years. Or worse, you're told, do this in order to, right? Do this in order to pass the test. Do this in order to get a job. Do this in order to get votes. Do this in order to make money. We've even created institutions that have structured the in order to, right? Political institutions, political parties, educational institutions. And with all due respect to this highly esteemed university, they're not what makes you great. You started that way. You started that way. Ironically, you know what else we're told? We're told not to be afraid. We're told, don't be afraid. There's no reason to fear. You can just move forward. Life's a little scary, ladies and gentlemen. You know, life can be a little scary, and we're told not to be afraid, and that, in the converse, makes us very afraid of what failure is. You know, so we spend all this time protecting ourselves from failure. And as parents and as adults, we spend all this time protecting our children from failing. When we think about it, well, that fail was really just a fall. And we know we can get up from that fall because we have done since before we could talk. And that fall, like mine or so many of hundreds of other people that I've spoken to about this, could actually be the defining moment in your life. Don't take that ability to fall away from me. But we're afraid. So we don't say the things we think. We don't do the things we think. We don't stand up to the bully on the playground who's calling everybody stupid. We don't stand up to the bully in the boardroom, the elected official, the shock jock, whatever it is. We let it pass, and just like I did, we squash it down and say, you know, that's not really any big deal. But the further we squash it, the more and more we get away from ourselves, right? And you can't, if you're not operating from yourself as a whole heart, from your whole heart, where does your creativity go? Your leadership. How can that flow if you're so far away from who you are really meant to be? So, what can we do? What can we do? Well, I'll tell you something. Do you know what the 9/11 firefighters and Ruby Bridges and that baby and you and you and you all have in common? What do? You get up. You stand up, and you keep showing up. You get up, you stand up, and you keep showing up. And what happens? Little by little, we start cultivating our courage, because it's there, right? It's in us. But it has to be practiced like everything else. For every moment that goes by, it has to be a little bit practiced. And when that happens, you begin slowly to have the courage to say, wait a minute, that doesn't really seem right. Let me fix it. Wait a minute, that doesn't really sound fair. Let me speak up. Wait a minute, I think that could be done just a little bit better. Let me try to improve it. Or, wait a minute, just wait a minute. In your truly courageous moments, this too shall pass. And I'm going to keep getting up and standing up and showing up until it does. So maybe one day you'll run into a fire and save a life. Maybe one day you'll speak your mind and change the reality of history for generations to come. Change a political policy. Maybe one day after a great public fall, you'll invent something that will change the world. Or go where no man or woman has ever gone before. My hope for you is this. If you're really lucky, maybe you'll be faced with a really, really tough situation so you can find out what it is that you're made of and come back to who it is that you were always supposed to be. If you do that, from there, your purpose, your passion, and your leadership will be able to evolve. But there's one thing you're going to have to do. You're going to have to stand up. Stand up. Stand up. Come on, come on. Let's talk more action. You're going to have to stand up for yourselves. You're going to have to stand up for who you are and who you were meant to be. You're going to have to stand up for somebody else who's maybe perceived weaker than you are. And maybe if you do that, they'll remember it forever. And maybe if you stand up for yourself, you'll remember that forever. So come back, and your purpose will come, and you'll find your way, and maybe you'll lead the rest of us there. Thank you very much.